Social media fodder was upset with you for the way you finally responded to him.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned his height and what you could do if there was ever an altercation. They said they felt like what he said about you was true because of the nature of your reaction.
Oh, well, see, first of all, I ain't really good at social media, so I didn't even know that was out there. But they can, like, really kiss most of the corners of my ass.
Let me make sure I've got this right. Katt Williams goes on a podcast, looks straight into the camera, and says Marjorie Harvey is the real one in control. Not Steve, not the man with the big shows, the relationship books, and all that Family Feud money, but his wife. The one who rarely gives interviews, the one who stays quiet while Steve handles the spotlight. Williams is saying she's the one pulling every string, from the feuds to the career moves to how critics get handled, and everything connected to that January 3rd moment. And within just 72 hours, the entire conversation around Steve Harvey flipped completely. Now he's not being viewed as the self-made success story anymore. He starts to look more like the front man, the face in the suit, someone moving based on direction instead of his own choices. His only public response since all this has been a video where he talks about haters and quotes Psalms, even saying, "I got somebody really attacking me right now," but he never says Williams' name and never directly denies anything. So now the same question keeps coming up, and it is getting harder to ignore. Is Steve Harvey actually in control of his own life, or is he moving under Marjorie's direction? Here's what Williams actually claimed, and it goes way beyond a casual insult. He said, Steve is not the real villain and never was. According to him, the real operator is Marjorie, and she has been running things behind the scenes for years. Then another detail came out that made everything feel less like speculation and more like something worth questioning. An insider close to the Harvey family allegedly said Marjorie was the one who pushed Steve to address Williams publicly, not Steve choosing on his own to defend his name. If that is true, then it changes how every move looks from that point on. It raises the idea that his decisions are not fully his, and even his silence starts to feel less like strength and more like something controlled. Now look at the video Steve posted on January 7th. He is standing on the Family Feud set, calm and composed. He talks about not needing to respond to critics. He quotes Psalms. He prepares a table in the presence of mine enemies and says, "I got somebody really attacking me right now," and then stops. No names, no details, no denial about Marjorie, no response to the claims, just a calm message that almost feels rehearsed, like words he was given to say. That alone would already seem unusual. A man with Steve Harvey's level of reach, his audience, his public image, choosing to stay quiet while something this serious is being said raises questions. When someone publicly accuses his wife of controlling him, and then you add that insider claim on top of it, the video starts to feel very different. It no longer comes across like a man rising above drama. Instead, it starts to look like someone following direction he may not have wanted to give. And this is where the situation grows beyond just one comedian and one podcast. Within days of Williams' interview, more voices began to speak out. Not just one or two, but several. Steve's ex-wife, another comedian, a radio host who had ties to Bernie Mac, and even Bernie Mac's daughter all spoke within that same short January window, describing similar patterns in their own way. Steve Harvey has not directly responded to any of them. Not once. At this point, the silence no longer feels neutral. It starts to stand out as the loudest part of the entire situation. Let's get into the part that hits the hardest. Mary Shackelford, Steve's second wife, the woman he was married to before Marjorie, came forward with detailed claims about what she says happened during and after their relationship. She alleges that Steve was involved with Marjorie before their divorce was finalized, and that the situation around their separation turned into a serious personal and legal battle. She also claims there were major conflicts involving their son and disputes over property, finances, and control. In her own words, she said, "He took my Winton from me. He turned my son against me, had me evicted from her house, thrown out all the businesses, all the money, the cars." Those are direct and specific accusations, not broad complaints, and they add another layer to the wider conversation. Now, some of the ongoing talk around this situation tries to connect her claims to the bigger narrative being pushed, including the idea that Steve was not acting alone. According to that version, Marjorie is described as the one guiding decisions behind the scenes, while Steve handled things publicly. In that framing, Steve is the one who spoke out, calling Mary bitter and harmful to their son, while Marjorie stayed out of the spotlight. Some people see that silence not as sluchinist, but as a deliberate choice, a way to avoid direct scrutiny and questions about past relationships and divorces. That perspective continues to circulate, raising more questions about what really happened behind closed doors and who was truly making the key decisions. The claim goes even further, suggesting a pattern where one person stays in the background while the other takes all the public pressure. The idea being pushed is simple: stay out of sight, let Steve be the voice, and if things fall apart, he is the one left answering for it. Williams pointed out that Marjorie has not done an interview in around 20 years. In a time where everyone is speaking out, going on podcasts, and shaping their own story, that level of silence stands out. It can be seen as strong discipline, or it can raise questions about whether it is a calculated decision to avoid scrutiny. What is really on the line here is much bigger than one accusation. Steve Harvey built a massive brand around giving relationship advice, presenting himself as someone who understands marriage, family, and accountability. His books, shows, and public image all depend on that idea. If people start to believe the narrative that he is being controlled or influenced behind the scenes, that image takes a serious hit. It becomes harder to trust advice about relationships if his own situation is being questioned in such a public way. Claims about past conflicts, including disputes with his ex-wife and family matters, only add to that pressure. At the same time, the attention shifts to Marjorie as well. Staying silent becomes more noticeable the longer the conversation continues, and for some, that silence starts to feel like part of the story rather than an absence of one. As more voices weigh in, the situation keeps building, and it becomes harder for any part of it to simply fade away. Here's the part that really makes people question how deep this situation might go. If the idea is that Marjorie is influencing Steve Harvey's decisions, then it naturally leads some people to ask what else could be connected to that. Some of the same sources pushing the puppet master narrative also bring up other claims and rumors that have been circulating. These include mentions of past relationships, legal histories tied to people in her circle, and commentary about her family that others have already been discussing online. Those points are not confirmed facts, but they are part of the broader conversation that keeps getting linked back to this main accusation. Through all of this, Steve has remained publicly quiet on those specific claims. He has not directly addressed them, and instead continues to post general messages about criticism and staying grounded, even as the conversation around him keeps growing. So it raises a direct question. If Steve Harvey were fully in control of his public image, would he allow accusations like this about his wife and his past to spread without clearly responding? Would he stay silent while people question his role in his previous marriage and repeat serious allegations about his personal life? Instead of giving a direct denial, he chose to share a message referencing Psalms and dealing with critics. For many watching, that choice stands out, and it keeps the debate going about what is really happening behind the scenes. The argument being pushed is that Steve is staying quiet because he cannot speak freely, that every response depends on someone else's approval. And the person people keep pointing to is Marjorie, the one who rarely does interviews, rarely explains anything publicly, and stays out of direct conflict. That leads back to the same question that keeps coming up. Is Steve just the public face of the brand while someone else manages things behind the scenes? For some people watching this unfold, his silence feels like confirmation, and even that calm video response gets interpreted as part of a larger pattern. At the same time, the wave of accusations that surfaced within such a short window only added more attention. Different individuals came forward with their own claims and perspectives, and while they vary, they all contributed to the same growing narrative surrounding his personal and professional life. Some versions of that narrative even try to shift the focus, suggesting Steve is not the main architect of everything, but rather the one who ended up in the spotlight while bigger decisions were made elsewhere. That idea remains unproven, but it continues to circulate as more people discuss the situation. Then, there is another piece that made people look at him differently. A memo Steve Harvey sent to his talk show staff was leaked, and its tone surprised a lot of people. It reportedly said, "Do not come to my dressing room unless invited. Do not approach me in the makeup chair. Do not wait for me in the hallways. Make an appointment." He also wrote, "Do not take offense to the new way of doing business. It's for the good of my personal life and enjoyment." When asked about it later, Steve confirmed the memo was real. He admitted he might have handled it differently, but he did not apologize. For someone known for giving advice about communication and respect, that moment stood out. It created a sharp contrast between his public message and how he chose to set boundaries with his own team, adding even more layers to how people are now viewing him and everything connected to this story. Then Gary Owens spoke up, and suddenly that memo did not feel like a one-off situation anymore. Owens said he worked on Steve's talk show for about 2 weeks as the voice announcer. His role was simple: introduce the guests, then head back to his dressing room and wait. But the conditions he described raised eyebrows. He said the dressing room was extremely small, no bathroom, with a broken desk and a broken chair. On top of that, he was paid the SAG minimum, the lowest rate allowed for a professional actor in that setting. To put that in perspective, Owen mentioned that he worked on another show, Hip Hop Squares, for just 3 episodes and made 4 times what he earned during those 2 weeks. He made it clear he was not directly blaming Steve, instead pointing at the production company behind the scenes. Still, it brings up a fair question. If Steve Harvey is the executive producer, if his name is tied to the show, how aware is he of how people on his set are treated and paid? And when you start asking that, it naturally pushes the story further back, long before the memo, before the talk show era, before the books, back to a name that carries serious weight: Bernie Mac. When Gary Owens shared his experience, it made that memo feel like part of a bigger pattern instead of a one-time situation. He explained that he worked on Steve's talk show for about 2 weeks as the voice announcer, coming out to introduce guests, and then heading straight back to his dressing room. What stood out was how he described that space. He said it was extremely small, no bathroom, and had a broken desk and chair. On top of that, he was paid the SAG minimum, which is the lowest rate allowed for that kind of work. Owen compared it to another job he had on Hip Hop Squares, where he filmed just 3 episodes and ended up making 4 times what he earned during those 2 weeks. He made sure to clarify that he was not directly blaming Steve, and instead pointed toward the production company. Even with that said, it still raises a question people keep coming back to. If Steve Harvey is the executive producer and the face tied to the project, how much does he actually know about how people working on his show are treated and compensated? And once that question is on the table, it pushes everything further back, before the memo, before the talk show, before the public image, to a name that still carries weight: Bernie Mac. The stories about Bernie Mac paint a picture of tension, with some claiming there was jealousy and insecurity behind the scenes. Then, there are the rumors involving Lori, with people online suggesting Marjorie's role in her life has been more strategic than it appears. That is where everything stands right now, unresolved and only getting more complicated. And through all of this, Steve still has not done the one thing that could shut the whole conversation down. He has not looked directly into the camera and clearly said, "Marjorie does not control me." That silence keeps the questions alive and the speculation growing. If you have been following this, share your thoughts below, and do not forget to like, subscribe, and pass this along so more people can weigh in on what is really going on.